got a lot of people commenting here, and there's a lot of people fired up about tonight's game, the Chargers Cowboys. And here's Dale. He says, when you run at Parsons, he has the most problems, as great as he is.
Well, you got to be able to run. The offensive line has to run block, and they've not been able to do it with any consistency at all. Now, the Chargers obviously want to throw the ball, and they want to not only need to throw it down the field, obviously they spread the field, and they're going to throw it to Austin Eckler. But Parsons comes from everywhere. In modern-day football, I don't think I've seen anybody as complete and as fast at the linebacker position who can play different roles. Line him up outside and send him. Line him up inside, almost as if he's a defensive tackle, and send him. Drops into coverage. He's a complete football player. So I think it's going to be a good game. I think the Chargers can do a lot of things moving the football. I'm worried about what the Chargers can do defensively because I just think there's an explosion that's going to happen involving Dak Prescott. They're going to get this offense dialed in, and it better get dialed in tonight because their season's going to be – they're going to be in a tough corner if they lose their third game this early in the campaign.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's game. I think it's going to be terrific. Hey, we got a motorsports question here. Auto racing. This is from Tate. He says, Kyle Larson can be the first in motorsports history to win 2 major championships in 2 major racing categories in the same year. So he goes on, he leaves a link, but he says NASCAR Cup for the second time after being banned by NASCAR in 2020 and coming back to kick ass.
He's really rallied back, and of course he won on Sunday in a really interesting race. He's a fine young driver. He got a little sidetracked. I mean, when he first arrived, he was so hot and he won so much. I thought, and he's such an interesting personality. I said, is this the next coming of Dale Earnhardt? And it didn't happen because he got himself sidetracked for some stuff he did off the track and some of his comments. But he's a really good driver. The NASCAR championship is weird because they've come up with this playoff system, and I don't know that the whole world identifies with this playoff. When they went from 16 down to 12, and now there's down to the final 8. And if you're in the final 8 and you win, you're still eligible to win the big prize, $5 million prize at the end of the season. I don't know if fans are as in tuned to this playoff structure as they were before when it was just Earnhardt and Waltrip and all the good old boys going after each other Sunday by Sunday. But Kyle Larson's really, really good.
It's amazing is that anybody can ask you any sports-related question, and boom, you've got the information at the top of your head. You're the franchise.
As John Belushi in Saturday Night Live. You're right. I'm bleeping brilliant. I like it all. All right, next question.
Okay, this is from Gary, and he says, Sunday Ticket was free from DirecTV for the last year. I haven't bought it from YouTube. Too expensive for what you get.
It was interesting. I think it was the Washington Post did a survey, a random survey of thousands of NFL fans, and said, have you bought Sunday Ticket since it's gone to the, new to YouTube? 79% of the people they surveyed said no. 79% said no to the NFL. I got sticker shock with a price tag. Mine was $2.99, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I got this directive in the mail. Subscribe now. $4.99. Whoa. So I didn't. And I miss it, but I didn't. If it's really a most unique game, I'll go to a pub with you and we'll watch it at the pub.
Mm-hmm.
But 79% said no, they did not subscribe. And even though they jacked the prices up to only get 1.3 million when they needed 4.5 million to break even, that's what they call loss leader. That's an awful lot of, quote, loss, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, it's interesting how the NFL is such a cash cow, and everything is driven by money in that league. And with inflation and everything else getting more expensive and tickets for the games being more expensive, they keep raising the bar to see how far fans are willing to keep spending money. Maybe this is the limit. Maybe they've kind of hit a point where they're like, enough's enough. But it's similar to what's going on with the Padres when they lost their television contract, and, people are now having to pay a la carte for it, and some people are hesitant. So there's a lot of things swirling around with sports media these days.
And here's the asterisk to that sentence you just talked about. This hasn't gotten out yet. National Football League is negotiating to take the Super Bowl out of the U.S.
You killed me.
Take the Super Bowl to London, England.
Wow.
Global dollars, pal.
Mm.
And it's all a money grab. Now, maybe the fans just watch it on TV because it is the Super Bowl and it is an event. But if it's not going to be in Los Angeles, or it's not going to be in Miami or wherever, it's going to be in London at Wembley Stadium, and they'll charge beaucoup bucks for that for whoever goes to see the game in London. So, I don't know, would you be offended if the Super Bowl was abroad?
Well, I wouldn't be offended by that. I'm offended that they don't have the Super Bowl in San Diego. I mean, this is supposed to be the greatest place for it. So, yeah, the one thing after another, but they're definitely going global.
Okay, next question.
Moving on. And this is from Caesar. And he says, 1994 was the last year I watched every NFL game. I only watch the score tracker now because I don't have the patience for so many commercials.
Well, there's no doubt that commercials and advertising inventory drives the broadcast, which then drives ratings, which then drives the price tag that goes to the National Football League. I miss not seeing or not getting access to different games during the course of other games, but that's my choice not to spend the $499 for a DirecTV. But as John and I talked about, we can go have a beer and sit in a sports bar and look at all their games that they have on. So I guess we can get our fill just differently. But the money issue is a big thing. How much is too much? How much can John Q. Fan afford to pay?
Yeah, they're asking a lot. And by the way, 1994, that was a good year in the NFL, wasn't it, Lee?
Last I checked, that was the year we wound up going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
As the voice of the Chargers. It was about the last good thing we had to experience with the Bolts.
Okay, let's move on. This is from John. And he says, when the Rams, Chargers, and Raiders moved from all the places I'd lived in, I gave up on the NFL. NFL stands for no fan loyalty, leaving to attend the Caps Flames game.
Well, a big hockey fan. I think he is based in the nation's capital, in the District of Columbia. Teams don't move very often, but the NFL has obviously been pockmarked by how the owners of those three teams treated those communities. All of it driven by stadiums, but indirectly it's all driven by greed. And the NFL has changed. But it's big money. Big money is driving everything in every sport.
Mm-hmm.
Major League Baseball, NBA has now put their media rights up for bid. National Hockey League has done the exact same thing. So landscape has changed, just a different world. It's just not enjoying the games. It's paying a lot of money to go enjoy the games.
Well, they keep, raising the prices of tickets, and the Padres keep selling out. These other NFL teams keep bringing in more people. And, they just keep ratcheting it up, waiting to see when the fans are going to back off. And while we're starting to see it with television, but just similar to John, real quick, I was like him. When the Chargers moved, I was done with the NFL. Then I started doing the podcast with you, and I'm sucked right back in. Okay, let's move on. This is from Ramon. He says, rocking with the saw since the 80s, from Baja to the Canadian Rockies.
You got that right, and we were correct the way we designed Sports Talk Radio, and I was the first one through the wall to do it. And it wasn't easy, but we got great response. And it's so cool to see how many people are sampling what we're doing now with our Monday bonus podcast and our regular Thursday podcast. Just a reminder, subscribe so you'll know what we're doing, and share it so everybody else knows who we are.
Yeah, all right, right on. So let's move on down the line here, and let's go to Angel. He says, with the way they lost to Notre Dame, is it safe to say that USC playoff hopes have been shot?
I wouldn't say it's a deadlock that they won't make it, but they got a problem, because what's left on the USC schedule? The Ducks, the Huskies, and crosstown, the Bruins. And now that everybody has their problems on tape, and now they know you can't protect Caleb Williams because people are designing blitzes to come after him. Now Southern Cal's got a huge problem. How are they going to get through the back half of the schedule, get this quarterback upright so he can do what he does, and he does it really well, rather than running all over the field trying to protect himself? I mean, the last two games, the hits he's taken and what they've done to get him out of the pocket, and everything breaks down. I mean, it's phenomenal what Arizona did. Arizona ambushed him with blitzes that I'd never seen before, and USC couldn't block it. And then the same thing happened in South Bend. And guarantee you, every team that's left on the Trojan schedule, they got all those videos, and they'll design things off what the Wildcats and the Irish did to the Trojans. They're going to make life really, really hard. And then on the other side of the dollar bill, Alex Grinch's defense, terrible. Pass defense, terrible. Secondary. Yeah, they get sacks. They do get tackles for losses. But that doesn't mean anything if you're giving up a 24-yard pass on the very next series. So USC's not out of it, but USC's got problems, I think.
Well, do you think at the end of the season, Grinch survives?
A lot of people didn't think he should have survived last year.
Right.
A lot of people didn't think he should have come from Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, he certainly didn't deserve it. They had a terrible defense there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the answer to your question. We go on.
Let's go to SG Sports Talk Channel. I'm going with the Cowboys over the Chargers, winning this game 52-24 from SoFi Stadium.
Well, I think the tenacity and the athleticism of the Dallas defense will slow Justin Herbert down. But I don't know where you're going to get 52 points from the Dallas offense, even though they're playing what I think is a substandard Charger defense. That's not a Dallas offense has been very explosive. I spin back to the set of stats I gave you right at the top of our podcast. Dak Prescott's got 5 touchdowns and 4 picks in 5 games. 5 games. This is Dak Prescott that would normally have 12 touchdowns in his first 5 games. So they're not going down the field. They're not completing a lot of passes. The receivers don't look like the receivers that we saw a year or so ago. So I don't know if they can put 52 up on the Bolts, but I do think it's conceivable that Dallas is really good defense, second ranked on the planet, pass defense, good pass rush. Dallas's defense could hold the Chargers to 24.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to it. 52, that's a lot.
A lot of points anyway.
How you feeling, Lee? Are you able to hang in here with us for a bit more?
We're playing hurt. Let's go through a few more.
Okay, playing hurt. Let's go to Manny, and he says, will USC be happy to be playing in San Diego or El Paso for their bowl game?
That would be devastating if that happened. They'd still go to a big bowl game if this thing doesn't finish like we thought it would. But I got an alternative question for San Diego fan with us on our live stream, John, because the Holiday Bowl will match somebody from the Pac-12 versus somebody from the Atlantic Coast Conference. Well, it's not going to be Oregon. It's not going to be Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Probably won't be USC. Based on how UCLA treated the Holiday Bowl a year ago during the COVID, I would not invite UCLA back. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's the way it is. How about Coach Prime, Neon Dion, Colorado coming to the Holiday Bowl? Would that be a stroke of genius for the Holiday Bowl people to pull that off? I mean, Colorado might wind up with 5 losses. I mean, their schedule has taken a toll on them and not the same team now. And how about Colorado playing somebody from the Atlantic Coast Conference? That'd be cool.
It'd be really cool, but there's a lot of people think that Colorado's not going to win another game, and they wouldn't be bowl eligible.
Those same people are saying, well, they're going to go 1-11. This isn't going to work.
Yeah, but I mean, the way they played against Stanford, and they just blew it, and they still got a lot of tough games ahead of them. So I don't know, but it would be great to see Coach Prime in San Diego.
Well, it's early. It's way too early to be guesstimating on bowl matchups, but we'll just go look in the standings, the Atlantic Coast Conference, and let's find somebody that's kind of sexy we might want to bring out here to play Coach Prime. I think that'd be a coup if my friends at the Holiday Bowl could execute the Colorado Buffaloes coming to San Diego.
Oh, that'd be just great. All right.
Couple more?
Yeah, let's go here. Look at Steve Zach Botsford. Gotta love hockey season, the real sport.
Toughest trophy in the world to go get, NHL Stanley Cup. It's tougher than any of the others, all those 7-game series. So we've got a long hockey season ahead of us. Let's just see where it goes. But I'm violating the rule. No cheering in the press box. Okay. I'm rooting for the Gulls to have a bounce-back season, and I'm rooting for 12,000 people to show up on Beer Friday at Pechanga Arena and make a difference. Now, we got social media questions here, too, because I saw some of the stuff that you're going to preview on. Wow.
Okay. Well, there's a ton here. Let's get one in here about Dave Roberts. And well, wait a minute here. I gotta turn this off and that on. And now here we go. This is from Jazz, and he said, Dave did not tell Mookie and Freddie to go 1-21 and Kershaw to blow up. Yes, he's made some bullpen mistakes, but sometimes players just don't show up.
Well, sometimes guys get pitched around. Some guys try too hard. I mean, it was stunning that they went 1-for-21 at the top of the batting order. But at the end of the day, my only critique is, and this is just not Dave Roberts' fault, because they don't make those pitching decisions in a vacuum. That's just not him. That's Mark Pryor. That's the analytic guys upstairs. That's Andrew Friedman. They all meet, and they have all these numbers in front of them, and they say, this is what we think you should do if the starter gets in trouble. This ought to be the way the order works if you have to go to the bullpen. So the mistakes that he made, whether it's Kershaw or whether it's Lance Lynn starting on the road rather than at home, whether it's Bobby Miller, the rookie, starting at home after he had pitched well on the road, that's all a joint committee decision. So it's easy to critique and go after Dave Roberts, but let's be realistic. Analytics have changed the game, and that's a joint committee meeting. So at the end of the day, though, Roberts now has had, 5 postseasons, and there have been huge question marks about decisions with pitchers with him as manager.
Well, the overwhelming commentary on social media is that Dodger fans want Dave Roberts gone. They're either angry with him and said he should have been gone last year, or other people are saying, well, we've kind of gone long enough with him. This is probably as far as he's going to go. But he's a good guy. He's a good manager. I mean, he's a nice guy, but maybe he just doesn't have the right the right secret sauce, because he seems like he over manages and he makes decisions that are out of character than what he did in the regular season.
Well, if that's the case, then Mark Pryor should be making the decisions, because he's a former major league pitcher with all this experience and very highly regarded. But again, this is a team effort upstairs that's causing these problems. Next question.
Okay, we got one here about the Angels and Showalter, and this is from Next Stop Willits Point. He says, the way the new administration under recently hired Mets president of baseball ops, David Stearns, handled Buck's dismissal in New York was a disgrace and makes absolutely no sense unless there is an under-the-table deal done between Craig Counsell and Stearns and Buck Showalter, regardless of the missing of the world championship. Buck is a proven winner and second to none as far as baseball experience and acumen. He would be a welcome addition in Anaheim in a post-Ohtani world, assisting not only in the dugout, but the inevitable rebuild that may be about to take place in Anaheim.
Agree with all of that. And Buck's not to blame for what happened at Citi Field. They lost all those pitchers. It wasn't his fault. But you have a new president. And David Stearns comes in with a good reputation of building teams together. And David Stearns sat in the interview with Steve Cohen, the owner, and just made the opinion known. I come here, I make all the baseball decisions, top to bottom. And that includes whether or not to keep the manager or who we might hire as the general manager to work underneath me. So at the end of the day, Steve Cohen said, yes, you will have full autonomy to run the baseball side, which includes all these decisions. If I'm the Angels, I hire the guy. Guy's got almost 1,100 wins, been to the World Series, been in big markets, been in small markets, been through some good ownership, bad ownership. Guy's still got juice, still got gas left in the tank. And I think there's an intangible. Based on his resume, hi, I'm Buck Showalter. Here's my calling card. Here's everything I've done. He sits down with Ohtani. And maybe he convinces Ohtani of a Buck Showalter game plan that would allow Ohtani to stay here. And then that changes everything as it relates to the persona of Angel baseball. Now, granted, they still need pitching. They still have to figure out why they have so many guys that are getting hurt. But Buck Showalter walks in the door with one thing that we've not really had in a while: credibility.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, imagine if, the Rangers or the Astros win the World Series, Bochy, Dusty Baker, and people are going to say, hey, that's the model, right? We need an old school guy that, like you say, walks in the clubhouse, has instant credibility, and that's Buck Showalter. So I'm hoping he lands in Anaheim. I mean, Anaheim has so much potential to be a great franchise, and they constantly are stubbing their toe. So they got to get this right.
They could get it right now because Buck told New York Post reporters last week, I'm going to manage next year, and I'd like to be out there in the 714 area code. Angels, do it. It makes a lot of sense. A couple more here.
Okay, let's talk about the MLB playoff format. And this is from Kyle. And, they're talking about how the Dodgers could have lost this thing. He says, this isn't a mystery. Trevor Plouffe explained it on the Chris Rose rotation. Making MLB players go a week without a meaningful at-bat, then putting them back up to the plate, playing for their playoff lives, it just doesn't work.
Well, there's a lot of yapping about 5-day layoffs. Teams lose their momentum. Teams are also exhausted. The 5-day layoff should be huge for every pitching staff, which is fatigued. 162 game schedules, a monster schedule, John. But, years ago, when it was a 1-game wild card series, people were barking, well, it shouldn't be 1 game. You go through a whole season and something bad happens in the first game and you're going home. Make it best of 3, which I kind of thought that was kind of cool. But best of 3 now leads to the 5-day layoff for everybody else. Now, maybe you make everybody play immediately. Maybe you don't have buys. Maybe the number 1 team, which was the Atlanta Braves, are playing the last team that qualified as a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you do that, and everybody starts playing best of 3 or best of 5 right from the get-go. I don't know there's a perfect scenario because the 1-game plan, most people didn't think it was very fair.
Well, if you do that, Lee, you'd have to open it up to 8 teams. Like right now, it's 6 per league. So imagine 8 teams. Hey, the Padres might have made the playoffs. But I just think this is a weak excuse, to say, well, we had the bye, and that's to our disadvantage. Usually the bye is to your advantage. And if your guys, they're going to be working out, they're still going to be taking cuts in the cage, maybe some live pitching. I mean, you can't use that as an excuse. I mean, come on.
I agree. Everybody's playing by the same rules.
Right.
For the most part.
For the most part.
Hey, listen, we hope